What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today we're coming back with part 4 of our Recreating Dungeon Dice Monster series, and this will be the cards for Dungeon Dice Monsters. Now, this one is pretty simple, and can be done a couple different ways. How we've chose to do it is just resize pictures of, Dungeon Dice Monster cards, and added text to replace whatever we needed to that may been too small to get it to print clearly, or whatever. And of course you could do this in color, but of course I just did it in black and white because it's cheaper. But we got this to the correct size. We do have black borders here that we cut out. This is just to space it over because my printer doesn't print right to the edges. Then you're also going to need some Mod Podge and a card, and then possibly a sleeve as well. Now, another way you could do this is to just get out a square of paper, write out what you need to, either the full size, remake kind of a proxy, which I may do a video on in the future, how to make like a decent proxy of just a normal Yu-Gi-Oh card or kind of Dungeon Dice without a printer, but, or with. But this is basically, you just cut it out, but you could cut out this little square and just write in your own text and replace it over whatever card with the information you need, its health and such, attack. But we'll cut this one out. Just following our lines here that we've made on the printer. I basically just went on Canva, free kind of, graphic design website. Got the size correct of how big I wanted it to be. And then with the borders of the, the printer. And then that way I can just drop in the picture, kind of resize it to what it needs to be, and then it's good to go. Just print it off and it's the right size. And to the edges here. And then of course just add text if need be. But you're cutting that out. And then of course this is a little flimsy, so all we do is take some Mod Podge, or any kind of glue you could probably use. And then a card that we don't really care about. Another use for your, your commons you don't really care about too much. And we're just going to apply the Mod Podge all across the front of the card. Now you want to try and spread it out as much as possible if you're trying to get it kind of flat. You can use like kind of a scraper tool to help with that process. But it's not too big of a deal if it kind of gets a little wonked up. And then you're just going to take your, proxied Dungeon Dice Monster piece of paper, I guess you call it, and apply it over. Line it up as well as possible so that you're covering the edges. Obviously, if you don't go all the way, a little bit of the card will cover it. Or if you have some excess, you can always trim it off after. Now, I find it's not too big of a deal if it gets on the back. And what you could also do is print off a kind of Dungeon Dice Monster like backing and put it on the back of the card as well if you really wanted to. But what I'll usually do is let this kind of sit for a second. Make sure you can get as many of those kind of pockets out, any air bubbles, so it's attached as much. And then we'll get a bit more Mod Podge. And if you do kind of care about it kind of looking a little messy on the back, then you don't really need to do this step. But this is just to kind of secure it more. What I'll kind of do is go around the edges and just kind of get in between. That way it just kind of stays on there a bit more. Obviously you can spread this out as you go. But we'll just kind of go around for a quick demonstrational purpose here. Like I said, I don't really care about too much about the back, especially if they're just going to be in sleeves anyway. And there's not really much of a point of taking them out unless you're, you're making different decks and such, really getting into it. But I just go around those edges. All along. And then you can use your fingers to clean it up or whatever. And then we're just going to kind of layer across to get it off. We're also going to cover the front. And like I said, if you're going to do the back too with a Dungeon Dice Monster, logo or whatever, you could do that as well. But I go pretty liberally with the covering. That way, you know, it's water resistant. And it kind of can add a bit of shine to it depending on, you know, gloss or matte, Mod Podge, depending on what you use, see the different sealers and such. Let's see if we can just kind of pry it off here. It's going to be a little stuck. And then just set it right there. And then, you know, you let it dry. And obviously, you can pop it into a sleeve to further protect it. Just going to kind of wipe my hands off here and I'll show you what we do have for the starter set. So far, we obviously got the Vorse Raider, the Gearfried, Knight of Twin Swords, Strike Ninja, Buster Blader, Thunderball, and then for the Monster Lords, you could print out, you know, the normal one or the Japanese one of each here. Obviously, you'll need a second one of probably just a normal Monster Lord, but I just printed out the base, you know, 6 plus a Monster Lord and the Japanese one. And, you know, I didn't really need to replace the crests, but obviously all this info you could do, and like I said, you could proxy out the whole thing yourself just using a, say, a Vorse Raider, and then just put the info below him. Or, you know, you could do different tech and just kind of just do a whole card and write it out yourself. Lots of different ways to proxy them and get them as close to actual Dungeon Dice Monster cards as possible. You know, still keeping them thick and usable, retaining some structure, and then, you know, you can make some decks out of them. So, you know, your orange cards, that's your Warrior Dungeon Dice Monster deck, or your whatever. So you can start to organize them and do different stuff for more deck building processes. I figured it's a good little starter set. If you have any ideas to, you know, improve this, or, you know, either make it cheaper, or generally improve it, you know, in more of a costly way, I know you can buy kind of proxy cards, you could maybe get them printed off, maybe at like a Staples or something like that. But this works pretty well. Obviously, it's still wet there, so it's a little shiny, and it'll all kind of clear up. And, you know, you can do different stuff. You could maybe just take a highlighter and highlight in certain aspects, or leave certain things white to be colored in later, or kind of go over it with some light coloring with a highlighter or something. There's lots of different little customizable ways to improve them or to make them, you know, different stuff. You could make all your warriors yellow, and all your whatever, your beasts green, and your invincible monsters purple, you know, whatever you want, just so they're easier to distinguish or maybe tell what's what. Like I said, if you have any ideas or anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments. If you haven't checked out the other parts in the series, you know, I have done the dice and the figures so far, so that does leave the crest pool, the dungeon tiles, and the dungeon map. So we're halfway to recreating Dungeon Dice Monsters for almost nothing. You know, like I said, these can be easily recreated with just a piece of paper and gluing it onto a normal card and just writing out your own stuff. I figured this makes it a little bit more legit, and the closer you get, the better it kind of looks for video and just for playing in real life. So like I said, make sure to check out the other videos in the series. The first one's just kind of going through how the different steps will happen. Second, I believe, is the dice, and then the figures. And then now we are up to the cards. And I'm not sure which one will be next, but like I said, one of the three, the crest pool, the dungeon tiles, or the dungeon mat. Other than that, I do other Yu-Gi-Oh! DIY projects. You know, dice towers, you know, dice pools, or whatever you call them, kind of, you know, where you were, dice trays, I guess. Different stuff like that, different Yu-Gi-Oh! Projects, how to make custom shatter foils, stuff like that. You could even make these into shatter foils possibly as well. How to make custom ghost rares, stuff like that. Different Yu-Gi-Oh! DIY projects. So I recommend you check out the full playlist, which I'll probably also have a link to, as well as the other videos in the series so far, probably in the description or in the comments. And so far, I think it's coming together. And like I said, let me know if there's anything you think I missed. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. You know, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like the video. Make sure to hit that little notification bell so you know when new videos in the series or just channel content is coming out in general. And, you know, like I said, make sure to check out my other videos. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Peace.